Hi, I'm Eleanor, and welcome to this week's edition of the Intuition Lab. Today I'm going to be talking about an intuitive, aligned, identity based approach to goal setting that actually works. Because once you know who you are or who you feel aligned with becoming, you can start to set goals to get you where you want to be, not where you think you should be, or based on some persona that really just isn't in your best interests. Before we get started, if the Intuition Lab has been helpful to you, I would really appreciate it if you could like, share, and follow or subscribe, just so I can get the word out and get this information to people who really need to hear it. So, getting back into today's subject matter, just think of this as an extension of the SMART method, and you can look that up, but it's all about creating measurable goals that you can, track and, track your progress. But in this case, it has the added dimension of alignment. So it's pretty simple. I like to keep things uncomplicated around here. So overall, it's just aligning with your true self. So tuning into your intuition, really asking yourself, who am I at this stage in my life? Who do I want to become? Am I happy with where I am and I just want to be better? Do I just want to continue on as things are? Align with your true self and look into the themes in your life you want to embody. And I'll get into that a little more later. And performing a gap analysis. So, looking at where you are right now versus where you want to go or who you want to be, and what do you need to become that person. You may not need anything in particular, really, but instead time, resources, or help. But it's helpful to know exactly what it is you need to get the results you want. And really, in all of this, don't be discouraged by the difference between where you are and where you want to be. We all have to start somewhere. So, what do you do exactly to have this aligned approach to goal setting, right? I mean, as I record, it's the middle of January, prime turnover a new leaf season. And, you know, many people are doomed to failure because they are not being realistic with what they're trying to achieve right now at this point in their life with the level of energy, motivation, or even dedication or time or whatever that they have. It's important to be real about who you are now and where you want to go and if this is the right time to do it. But to get started with this goal setting process, first thing, you're going to want to intuitively brainstorm ways to get there. So I'd encourage you, once again, I'm going to take my characteristic deep breath during an episode and ground yourself. Be in a calm space if you can, or just in a space where you just feel options and energy and ideas flowing through you, and just start listing it out. You know what you want, right? We talked about that last week. Just start listing out ways to get there. I mean, it can run the gamut from fanciful to illegal, and you're going to want to rule that out, but sometimes it's helpful to just state it, right? Just start listing it out. And eventually you're going to have a pretty good list. If you want, you can time box it, like set a timer for like 3 or 5 minutes or 10, or just give yourself a couple days to just come back to the list, whenever you have an idea, whatever works best for you. And then once you have a list that feels pretty good, you're going to pick which options feel most aligned. For example, I am improving my fitness and getting back into shape this year, but I am not going to be someone who gets up at 5 a.m. to go for a brisk jog around the neighborhood, right? That would not be an aligned option for me. You're going to know which options feel the most aligned to you, even if everyone else tells you, now this isn't something you should do. If you really feel aligned with it and it's ethical, right, and not going to get you in trouble, then that's your option. And you're going to have a bunch of these. So if you're doing it with like pen and paper, cross things out, or just you can delete things on your phone or move them to the bottom of the list, just things you didn't pick, or do a strike through, change the text. But once you have these options going for you, group them into themes or categories and see where they intersect. Are they all pointing to a new whole? So, case in point with me and my fitness goals, I'm going to have things around meeting my meeting my dietary goals every day in a way that supports me maintaining muscle, losing fat, and getting to the weight I want to be. They're going to talk maybe about food prep or intentional shopping, but they're all going to have a theme of fitness, just as an example. And you're probably going to have several themes, like quite often people are like, I want to get my finances in order. I want to declutter. I want to have better friendships. I want to be surrounded by people who support me. It's also important, if you can, to approach it from a positive way, as opposed to I'm going to cut out all those miserable so and so's who treat me like garbage and don't value me, right? It's better to say, I want to be surrounded by people who love, trust, and respect me. And one of the tasks under that is going to be cutting out the miserable so and so's who don't value you and take advantage of you, right? But for the overarching theme, you want it to be as inspiring and something that engenders a good, warm feeling in you. And then you're going to pick 1 to 3 themes or categories to tackle in a year. Because for some people, you can completely rebuild your life from top to bottom in a year or less, right? But for most of us, realistically, you're only going to be able to pursue 1 or 2 things in depth. So for me, a big part of this year is like growing this podcast and other elements of my business and getting back into shape. Those are the 2 big things for me this year. Now, I have tertiary goals like continuing to declutter. I want to like scan in, like optimize my keepsakes, like scan in my old school reports and report cards that I still have from, I don't know, nursery school, even things like that. That's not my primary focus for the year because, you can't spread yourself too thin. You'll burn yourself out. You'll get tired of it. So pick 1 to 3 themes to tackle in a year. Now, once you have that squared away, you can take either a task or outcome based approach to get your action steps. Like one example that came up for me, which is really relevant, is I could say I sweep or vacuum my floors daily for 15 minutes, or I have clean, tidy floors. I mention this as someone who has multiple pets. As you can imagine, the fur flies on a daily basis. And if I don't stay on top of it, they're truly terrifying clumps of fur everywhere. So for me, it's important to have tidy floors, and I can just say I have clean, tidy floors, or I can break it down into I sweep or vacuum my floors daily. Some people for the year, they will create a list of 40 or 50 or 100 things to do each year. I do short term, like between 1 day to 6 weeks, mid range, 2 to 3 months, and long range goals, which for me is 6 months or more. Believe it or not, despite being an intuitive medium, I don't think that far ahead in my life. I know, like, okay, at this stage in my life, I would like to have achieved this, but some people crystallize it into beautiful detail. I don't. I just know that energy changes, especially for me. Things shift in my life pretty rapidly when I start to take action. So for me, it's helpful to plan maybe 6 to 9 months ahead at maximum. So, but you know what works best for you. If you are someone who creates 5 year plans that more or less go to plan, then do that. But I'm just presenting this as an option for those of us who don't really work that way. And again, most of these tasks or things to do will coalesce around a few themes. So look out for it, see how they map to the groupings you came up with in the previous step, see where they overlap, see if this is something that takes precedence or something you can back burner, or, if I make this progress on my primary goals, then I can integrate this thing, right? So for me, cleaning out, well, the garage is pretty tidy, but just like power washing it and replacing the shelves and doing a bit more decluttering in there, that's not my primary task. But if I am doing other things are going swimmingly in my life, then I am going to implement that. So, timeframes, they're important, and we all want what we want right now, but they're more and less important than you think. We're more outcome focused here. That makes life easier. It's more conducive to living in flow. And things may take more time or less time than you think. I find that time is sort of flexible. It responds to our taking aligned action. Um, think quarterly or ask yourself, what do I want a year from now, if that sort of thing works for you? It doesn't always work for me in specifics, but I know, like, okay, I want to be in better shape. I want to be, two dress sizes smaller a year from now. Um, that's one way to think about it instead of I want to lose 40 pounds in 6 months, which you can. But then if you get 6 months out from now and you've only lost 20 or 30 pounds, you're not a failure. It's just taking longer. So, again, around this, be realistic, but check in as you implement. And I would set something up on your calendar, like write it in or put it in your on your electronic calendar to check in. It can be daily, weekly, monthly. I would suggest monthly and quarterly, weekly for some things, but it's over the course of a month or 90 days that you really get to see progress. Check in, listen for intuitive clues, and as you're doing something or even reviewing your list of goals, ask if you are acting in alignment or on purpose with regard to what you're trying to achieve overall. Does this task or goal make real sense here? Is it really going to help you get where you want to go? If not, consider doing it later or not doing it at all, or, giving it to someone else to do. And also, if you start to implement things and they aren't going as you'd hope they would, does your approach need to change? So that's where you would check in with your intuition and just ask, is this the best way for me to go about this? Is there a better way? Please show me these options. And then listen and get the answers in the way you best connect. And I have a couple of episodes about how you tune in to your intuition. Um, does the goal itself need to change, right? Like if you were hoping to reach, and I'm speaking for myself as a female, um, I hope to reach 24% body fat, right? But would I be happy with 25 or 26? Maybe. I just have to see what that looks like. I find that for me, being more specific in the short term and theme based in the long term really helps me stay on track and stay aligned. You know, if asking yourself, where do you see yourself in X amount of time leaves you blank as it does me, like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't know. Could be anywhere, right? Um, be more specific in the short term and theme based in the long term. If you know, like long term, I want to travel more, I want to live on a cruise ship, right? You know that maybe in the short term, you rethink buying lots of furniture, or you think, okay, I'm going to have some yard sales and start decluttering. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I know that these things don't serve me anymore. That's just one example. So, again, be more specific in the short term and more theme based in the long term. So that's about it for this week. What goals do you have or will you set for the months ahead? And I just wanted to mention that intuitive aligned goal setting and check ins are something that happens inside my free Pathfinders community. So if you'd like some guidance and support with that, feel free to join. Its links to join are in the show notes. And also, if you would like some one on one guidance, that's also in the show notes. There are multiple ways to connect with me now. I have everything from a single question text base to a full on 1 month, you know, online, like via Zoom and chat based intuitive decision making and just life transformation support. So, whether I see you here next week or in Pathfinders or in a session, just know that setting aligned goals, living intuitively, living in alignment with your true self makes things run so much more smoothly. It's not going to be perfect. This is Earth School. It's not, nothing's going to be perfect, right? But you can make life easier on yourself, right? You don't have to struggle as much. I am sending you so much love and so much support. I'm here if you need me, so send me a message or make a comment, and I will see you very soon. Take care now. Bye.